In this video, we're going to describe where wastewater comes from and explain the treatment process for wastewater. There are two main sources of wastewater you need to know about. Domestic waste includes anything which goes down your sink, shower or toilet. And agricultural waste is water which comes from farmland. However, this is quite often contaminated from chemicals, so for example the fertilisers used on the fields. Both sources of wastewater, domestic and agricultural, need to be treated before they can be put back into the environment. There are 4 stages for the treatment of wastewater. The first thing we do is screen the water. We then put it in a sedimentation tank. The water from that tank is then treated via aerobic digestion, and the solid waste from that tank is treated with anaerobic digestion. We're now going to look at each of these 4 steps in more detail. During the screening stage, any large solids and grit are removed from the water. In the sedimentation stage, the wastewater is then stood in a big tank called a sedimentation tank. Any remaining bits of waste which are heavy will sink to the bottom of the tank, and any lighter bits of waste will float to the top of the tank. We can then remove both layers. We can essentially scrape off the top layer of anything which is light and floating, and we can then drain the water out, leaving the thick sludge layer at the bottom of the tank. On the wastewater from that tank, we then use aerobic bacteria to break down the organic matter further. We pump air into the tank, which encourages the bacteria to do aerobic digestion of any organic matter left in the water. So remember, aerobic means it involves oxygen, so we need to pump air in to promote this process to happen. And after this stage, the water can then be returned to the environment to go back into the water cycle. Anaerobic bacteria will act on the sludge left over from the sedimentation tank. So the anaerobic bacteria will break down the sludge, and in that process they release methane gas as that matter is broken down. We can then use the methane gas released from this process as an energy source. It's just like natural gas, so similar to the gas which you might have on your cooker. The solid remaining can then be used as fertiliser, so farmers will use it to help grow crops. So let's just summarise the overall process. We start off by screening the waste to remove any large solids and grit. We then stand the water in a sedimentation tank, where anything heavy will sink to the bottom and anything light will float to the top. We can then remove the top layer and drain off the water, leaving the sludge behind. We treat the water with aerobic digestion using bacteria, and we treat the remaining solid waste with anaerobic digestion, again using bacteria. The water can then be returned back into the environment, and the solid waste left over can be used as fertiliser, and the natural gas produced during that process, the methane gas, can be used as an energy source for things like cooking or heating or electricity generation.